All right, everyone, we're talking about travel plans in the age of COVID. No, just kidding. So we're going to do some quick introductions with our awesome guests today. We're going to go reverse order. We're going to go with Mimi, Ben, and then Ken. Mimi, where are you calling in from? What are we talking about today?
Hey, Ray. I'm calling in from New Jersey, northern New Jersey, right outside of New York City. And I think we'll be talking about uh, the new contract with workers in the organization of the future. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely super, super important topic. Let's go to Ben. Where are you calling in from? What are you talking about today?
Yeah, I'm calling from Tel Aviv, from Israel. I'm the CEO of a tech company called Gloat, and today we're
Woohoo.
going to talk about our main product, which is the internal talent marketplace, and what we are doing to large companies.
Wow, we got a theme going on here. Ken, what are we talking about today? Where are you calling in from?
So I'm calling in from London. We're talking about anything you want to talk about, but I could talk about a book I published called Framers and about the importance of mental models and limitations of artificial intelligence.
Oh, this is going to be all important. We're going to put all this together. We're going to roll it all up. You are watching episode 247 of Disrupt TV, sponsored by Robots and Pencils. We thank them. And Elle, please do our countdown.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Disrupt TV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on Twitter at Disrupt TV Show. Send Ray, myself, our distinguished guests, your questions using hashtag Disrupt TV, and we'll do our best to answer them during the show. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wong. He is the CEO and founder of Constellation Research. He is the author of a new book, Everybody Wants to Rule the World: Surviving and Thriving in a World of Digital Giants. He is a regular television and business technology news contributor. You can see him on Fox Business News, Yahoo Finance, CNBC, and Wall Street Journal. In my opinion, he's one of the top futurists to follow on Twitter at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wong, to Disrupt TV.
Hey, thank you. I'm here with my awesome co-host. Everybody knows him, Vala Afshar, Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce. He's also the author of The Pursuit of Social Business Excellence. I have to get a copy of that book. I'm tracking it down. Executives around the world pay attention to every one of his inspirational, insightful tweets. And when he's not hosting or keynoting or leading events at Salesforce and Salesforce Plus, you can find him speaking on business TV outlets such as Bloomberg and posting insightful analyses on ZDNet and often about this show. But it's not about us. It's about our awesome guest. Who do we have today?
We have an amazing guest, someone I've been following on Twitter and learning from for years. Ken Cukier is an award-winning journalist, book author, and keynote speaker. He's a senior editor at The Economist, and he's a fellow at Oxford Said Business School researching artificial intelligence. Ken is the co-author of Framers on mental models, and earlier, Big Data, a revolution that will transform how we live, work, and think. An international bestseller, translated to over 20 languages and sold over 1 million copies. TED Talk on data and AI, titled Big Data is Better Data, which is a look at machine learning and how human knowledge is evolving, is approaching 2 million views. It's an amazing TED Talk. Go watch it. Ken is active with many charities. He's on board directors of the Open String Foundation, which provides classical instruments to children in poverty, and is a trustee of the Chatham House, the Royal Institute of International Affairs. You can follow Ken on Twitter at KNCUKIER, a must follow. Welcome, Ken, to Disrupt TV.
Thank you very much. It's really generous.
Thank you, sir.
An amazing book. All right. If you're thinking about mental models, if you're trying to figure out what's going on, we do this all the time. And you know what? Like, we don't do a good job of it because we never really put a framing around framing. And that's what you did. So let's talk about framing, how it works, why it's so important, right? And how do we actually, I don't know, think a few steps ahead?
Absolutely. I mean, mental models are absolutely essential. And as you said, we're always in one. We're always thinking about playing the game of life, 2 steps ahead, thinking, well, what do I do? But rarely do we actually take a moment to think about, well, how do I think about things? And of course, we're in a world in which we've got so many challenges and so many problems. And the same thinking that got us into this jam is not going to be the ones to get us out. So we have to change the way that we think. So I and my 2 co-authors wrote a book all about framing, the importance of mental models. But the key thing is this, that in the world of artificial intelligence, when the machine will make so many decisions for us, and in fact make better decisions than us, because artificial intelligence will be disruptive, transformative, and good, still there's something important about the way that humans conceptualize the world that will be vital to preserve and in fact to enhance. So we need to get better at framing.
In the book, Ken, you write, to frame is to make a mental model that enables us to see patterns, predict how things will unfold, and understand new situations. Can you give us an example of framing?
Sure. It'll be really easy if you think about it in terms of a business example, particularly for the audience that we have. So think about the world of 2007, 2008. When Nokia saw mobile communications, they saw it as a telecom company, and they framed it as a telecom world in which what you do is you're trying to get the cheapest phone as possible, the smallest phone as possible, and you as the carrier determine all the features that it would be in it, and you try to make it very simplified for the user. That was the telephone model, and it also has to be incredibly reliable, like the 5 nines, 99.999 reliability, which comes from the telecom world. Apple, Steve Jobs had a different view. They framed the device differently. They framed it under the computing model. And under the computing frame, they did away with all of those aspects of mobile communications. Suddenly the device was very expensive. The device was larger and heavier. People were upset with it. It, of course, would be extensible through software, yet it would crash. It would still have problems. But that was fine. Of course, the computing frame was better for the needs of people, whereas the previous frame of the telecom frame wasn't right for mobile phones at the same time. Great, smart executives looking at the exact same market framed the issue differently, therefore came up with different options, made different decisions, had different outcomes.
It's amazing because cover of Forbes in 2007 with Nokia, can anyone displace the king of cell phones? To think that reframing completely shifted the market is just an incredible example of the power of reframing.
And it's not, sorry, Ray, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say, it's also not obvious, right? At the time that was the right answer. I actually I confess this, I'm so embarrassed, but it's true. I had an interview with the CEO of Nokia at the time. And at the end of the interview, as you're packing up, he leans in and says, "What do you think of the iPhone?" It hadn't been launched yet. We didn't know what it was going to be, but we knew it was coming down the pike. He said, "What do you think of the iPhone?" And I said, "Look, Steve Jobs comes from the computing industry, and you launch products and they don't work and then you fix it. But consumers are not going to tolerate that with a mobile phone. They're going to want it to work, and they're innovating with so many
$500 price point, of course.
Exactly. A touch screen, one that would have to turn with you. They were combining so many different innovations. How are you going to survive? Exactly. They were combining so. I look at him, with the certainty of a journalist. As a young journalist versus a middle-aged journalist. When you get a little bit older, you realize you don't know everything. But at the time, I didn't realize that. And of course, I did. I was the fount of all knowledge. So I look at him with great certainty and I say, this is going to be Steve Jobs' Waterloo. So I was just so certain that it was going to blow up, and it would be like the new Coke and the classic Coke, where they'd have to sort of backtrack, they'd have to fix it, they'd have to have a mea culpa. Too many technologies launching for the first time to go out at the scale, at the volumes that it was. Because of course, the volumes of the mobile phone industry and of the computing industry were vastly different. You had hundreds of millions when it came to mobile phones, and you didn't have that at Apple at the time. I was completely wrong. But of course, that's why Steve Jobs is Steve Jobs, and that's why I have to learn from my mistakes.
But hey, you're basically making the case here for diversity of thought, right? I mean, coming at it from different angles, changing your mental models, thinking about this framing, and a lot of organizations, they think the same way. It's very, very hard for it, right? So what does it take to be a good framer? I mean, is it different perspectives? Is it like bringing a left brain, right brain person together? Is it like having an ethnographer hang out with a engineer? I mean, like, what does it take? Because this doesn't look like it's an easy job either.
That's absolutely right. And it actually requires a lot of care. It's not obvious that you can bring people together. The critical thing is that you do want that cognitive diversity. You want, if you will, cognitive foraging. You want an institution as well as individuals that actively look out for other people and seek new experiences and seek new ideas. However, what a lot of organizations do is they take the first step in, but not the second. And by that, I mean, they're willing to sort of bring together a diverse group of people who think differently, But that creates friction, and that's
Yes.
not easy to manage. But we must manage it. The point is that we can't say, it's really uncomfortable, and therefore it's better to sort of to not have that conflict and not have that clash of ideas, and better for all of us to agree. And if you bottle it down or tamp it down, it doesn't work. What you really need to do is embrace that friction and have a culture that accepts that there's going to be a clash, that it is going to be tense. It's not going to be easy, but it's the right thing to do, that we trust the process.
So this tolerance, right? This is such an important piece. Tolerance versus diversity, or the balance of tolerance and diversity. A lot of organizations aren't getting it right. I mean, across the board. And it's different. If you're executing, it's very different than when you're creating and designing. Do you see those differences as well?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, tolerance is important. Diversity is important. If you will, there's a term for it, and that is pluralism. It's not simply that we have different views. It's that we allow those different views to coexist. It's not that we're all going to try to agree on one single view. And this is different from the message that we usually get. Often we're hearing, we all need to coalesce. We all need to agree in order to move forward. We need to cooperate by sort of seeing globally a consensus. Well, our book is different. It says that we're not going to reach a consensus, nor should that be the goal. In fact, if you have a consensus, it might be the wrong consensus, but also it won't allow for the fresh flow of new ideas. So don't strive for consensus. Exactly, precisely. Don't strive. In fact, we have in our book, we have a nice little vignette about the Cuban Missile Crisis and John F. Kennedy, which sort of brought the idea of groupthink into play, for the very reason that we need to think in a much more elastic way than we have before. And organizations can do better at it by having, if you will, archetypes. You want to have the court jester, which we talk about in the book, as an archetype of someone who can speak truth to the king.
Yeah, in the book, you talk about vigilance. We must remain on guard not to cede our power. You talk about continuous learning and the need for a wide variety of frames, crucial for progress. You talk about constraints. Vision needs to be bounded to be effective. Counterfactuals, causality. Which one of these elements do you think is critically important in terms of becoming a solid framer?
So glad you asked it. Without a doubt, it is counterfactuals. I've actually applied that. I know apply that in my own life and sort of particularly in work, but in all things that I do. Once you have a term for it, and once you see it as a process, you can actually work with it in a way that before it was sort of intuitive, but in the background now it's front and center and it becomes more effective. The idea of thinking in counterfactuals, in playing the game of life a couple ticks ahead and asking yourself, what if? What are the second order effects? How would it be different if I imagine it differently? How would I see the world differently, see different options, make different decisions, get different and better outcomes by doing so? A lot of organizations do that. Great high-performance athletes have visualizations, and executive coaches tell high-performance executives to sort of to visualize and have creative visualizations for how things might unfold. But when you take it seriously and apply it, a lot of things open up. You automatically sort of feel more experienced because you've done something 30 times before or 300 times before, rather than a sort of one-shot moment.
In the book, I think you used global warming or the narrative around rising temperatures and carbon dioxide and counterfactuals in terms of absence of humans producing or being the result of can you quickly give us an overview of that example? I thought it was very powerful.
Yeah, thank you. I know it was. We're really pleased with it, particularly because we were able to vaunt two women who are heroes in climate science.
Yeah, right.
One, most importantly,
I didn't know that until I read your book. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, thank you. So Eunice Foote is the person who in the mid-1800s, a female scientist, she didn't get credit for it until really in the last 2 or 3 years when she was rediscovered almost by accident. People think it was John Tyndall who first created the causal model between heating up carbon dioxide, and therefore warming the planet. But it wasn't him. It was actually years before him, this woman, Eunice Foote, who was an American, and has a great history as well as being a suffragette and for women's rights in the mid-1800s. Now, that was a causal model of global warming. That simply says that if you burn fossil fuels and carbon goes into the atmosphere, it will warm up. But how do you actually know that humans were responsible for it? That's a different question. You only have one Earth, so you can't run an experiment to find out, are humans responsible for it? What you need, however, is a model that presumes an Earth with humans, as we have, and one, importantly, without humans. To do that, you need a model of counterfactuals, a counterfactual statistical model. That's very different. The scientists took a long time to get to this idea of the counterfactual. But now you can run a comparison where, keeping everything the same, was humans responsible for global warming. And the person who did that was a woman. Her name was Ines Fung. She was part of the famous Jim Hansen team at NASA in the 1980s. And she's the second author on the Hansen paper, which was the major climate model in 1986 that basically told the world on the front pages of all the newspapers that climate change is happening. It's real. It looks pretty grim. We need to do something about it. Now, sadly, they had the models, but they didn't have the political backing. So we still have to fight that fight. But it was Ines Fung, who's still alive in her probably about 80s at Berkeley, who did all that work.
Fascinating story. Wow.
Let's take this back to the Apple example, Nokia versus Apple, right? You take it even further. You talk about how Spotify reframed the concept of music as an experience and crushed Apple in its own space. I thought that was awesome. Like, you one-upped yourself in the middle of this thing.
Completely. And who would have thought? But of course, if you treat music as a product, you produce one set of, user interfaces and one set of expectations and one economic model. But if you treat it as an experience, it looks like something different. And Apple has been slow to that. And of course, they're trying to catch up. But Spotify was there first with streaming, but also understanding that they're not selling a product, they're selling an experience. And that was pretty decisive. And interesting that Apple shouldn't actually have moved in that direction, probably because of internal economic interests, not to, because of course they are very experiential in all their other domains of software and hardware.
Yeah, that framing of products to services to experiences to outcomes. I mean, those are different mental frames that people can take something as an offering and walk them through. So,
absolutely.
I mean, some great examples in your book.
Last night, at 10 o'clock my time, I'm sitting there live watching AI Day, Tesla AI Day with Elon Musk and his chief engineers for visioning and Dojo and software, hardware, data scientist folks. And I'm an electrical engineer. I took as many math courses as you can imagine and wrote software for years. And for the first couple of hours, I'm completely lost with these incredible, deep experts talking about, smart visioning and real-time rendering. And I really enjoyed the last part with the Q&A with the panel, but all along I'm thinking, is there anything that AI can't do? And I know we're talking about narrow AI, but the demonstrations were so rich and so smart, and of course then the humanoid is introduced at the end, and realize as Tesla is a robotics company, but you talk about framers and the human advantage in the age of technology, and you say this is something that AI can't do. Can you, or reframing, can you talk about your point of view in terms of what is that advantage that we have? Because to be honest with you, Ken, after watching AI Day, I'm thinking in 10 years from now, there's not much that these algorithms aren't going to be able to do.
I got to get a Dojo D1 chip, Anyway.
Yeah, stack of them, stack.
We need stacks. We need stacks.
The book makes an interesting contribution, but one that doesn't fit into the natural compartments that most people use looking at this. If you ask people around the world, either you've got the AI optimists who say this is great, there's going to be no problem, and AI can do everything. And there's those people who say AI is absolutely terrible and has all of these shortcomings. We don't believe in either camp. We think that we believe actually maybe closer to the AI optimists to say that actually AI is extraordinary. AI will be transformative and can do so much that we should be so happy about. And in fact, AI importantly will make decisions better than human beings. Of course, there's going to be wobbles to get there, as there always will be with all technologies. But in fact, axiomatically, that should be right. On the other hand, there are limitations to AI that people aren't seeing. And those limitations are that it can't generate a mental model. When AI is actually designed, it has if you will, a mental model baked into it. And if you look at all of the great successes in AI, whether it's AlphaGo or AlphaFold or esports and Dota 2 from OpenAI, you can see that in fact the programmers had to imbue it with representations or abstractions of the world, which is what a mental model is, which is a frame is, right? And those representations and abstractions of the world, they can actually change, right? And that's important. You might need to adjust the frame or you might need to reframe altogether to actually solve a problem. Now, what is a frame? It has both causality, counterfactuals, and constraints into it. Those are the very three things that AI simply cannot do on its own and needs a human being behind it to actually tinker in the background. Right? That the dirty little secret about deep learning is it requires a lot of adjusting. Right? All the AI engineers know that, but the media that I belong to, the cast I belong to, often doesn't, or it simplifies that. But the key thing is that we're still going to need human beings to conceptualize the world, to frame it, and to actually reframe it where it needs to be reframed.
I love that. I love that. I'm telling you, every executive needs to read this book. It's really brilliant, and the way, no pun intended, the way you framed the narrative is just it's easy to understand. You don't have to study AI research to understand the implications. And anyway, it's a great book. Congratulations.
The person who framed framing. Kenneth Cukier, senior editor for The Economist, Twitter at KNCUKIER. Get the book. It is one of my favorite books right now, and is on my shelf. So take care. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying late. And it's time to hit the bar in London. Oh wait, you can't do that.
Pub, yes. Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much.
The pubs. Bye.
Thank you. Wow. This extraordinary amount of nuggets of wisdom in the book. So it's one of my two most recommended books of 2021.
Thank you.
I'm just surrounded by best-selling authors and extraordinary CEOs. Our next guest, Ben Reuveni, co-founder, CEO of Gloat. Ben, in his role, oversees Gloat's growth strategy and has taken an understanding for business agility as well as a mission to improve workplace culture from within. What an important topic right now. Prior to founding Gloat, Ben spent 6 years at IBM in a series of roles ranging from the core development team of the R&D division for global customer-facing responsibilities. Ben's passion for talent and career development drives from his early background as a member of the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF. Ben demonstrated extraordinary emotional intelligence and was asked to focus on unlocking the work capacity and skills of his squadron. Ben's time in the military and IBM inspired him to support the discovery of internal talent and the maturation of career opportunities in lockstep with the future of work, leading to the creation of his company, Gloat. You can follow Ben on Twitter at REUVENI, Ben, B-E-N. Welcome, Ben, to DisrupTV.
Thanks for having me. I still don't have a book, by the way, yet, but by the way, that sounds like a great book that I'm going to buy. So thanks again for that.
Ben, our promise is as soon as you write the book, we have you back on the show to talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get you back on the show.
Boom.
So, but what we really want to know is like which IDF unit were you in? 669, Magia? I'm just kidding. Anyways, what is this internal talent marketplace? Let's start there. I mean, lots of people are looking into it. I mean, dynamic skills, continuous learning, right? All these things are popping up. People can't find enough tech skills. In the US, we have 9 million, unemployed individuals, 9.5 million open jobs. Definitely talks to a huge, tech skill deficit, along with, of course, some other factors in the background. But the question is, right, why are people doubling down now in internal talent marketplaces?
Yeah. Actually, that's really, really true, because we see how they are doubling down. They started to realize, actually, I guess, a bit before the COVID and COVID like really accelerate that. How is it important for organization to deal with the internal talent? And what we've created at Gloat, we created an internal talent marketplace. And if you think about it, we are turning the organization into an agile, live, dynamic talent marketplace that in one hand, we are onboarding employees, and on the other hand, we are onboarding the hiring managers. So we let them both find each other in a way we think they should do it today. Imagine every aspect to their career within the company, we are trying to help them to develop. It could be part-time projects, it could be full-time job transition, it could be mentoring, it could be shadowing, everything that relates to their career. We are trying to help them to pursue within the organization.
Ben, we just spent time talking to Ken about machine learning and AI and its impact on future of business, life, work. and the importance of framing not a pessimistic or optimistic, but perhaps a realistic view of the changing nature of work and the cognitive download from humans to software and machines, creating a future of work that's going to be algorithms and people coexisting. So can you talk about the role of AI that plays in supporting and expediting the upskilling and reskilling of the workplace? Last night, Elon Musk said, manual labor will no longer be part of our future of work. And a lot of this work in terms of manual labor or dangerous work, repetitive work, is ultimately going to be transitioning to machines. So again, talk to us about how do we reskill, upskill our employees, knowing that we're in the age of algorithms?
Yeah, that's a great topic, and it's also really relevant to what we are doing. And if you look, and from my perspective, the AI has a significant part in the success of the talent marketplace and all the skills and reskills. And if you think about what AI helps us to do, it helps us to be smart in that way. It helps us to build dynamic skills that we are able to identify a career path for every one of the employees within the company. So without AI, it would be very hard for human to actually do that. So what AI actually help us is to help us to build a dynamic marketplace where every one of the employees that uses our product, we are able to look on their career history and look on their skills and help them to plan their next step, and not even the immediate next step. It could be even the step after that and the step after that as well. And if I'm looking about AI, it first of all help us to build the fundamental infrastructures for skills, because skills such a big topic, and I know, Ray, that you also wrote a report on that, on how important that topic is. And if you think about how much it's developed and evolving, so you must have an algorithm that know how to think about skills in a dynamic way, because one skill could be something different in the next few years. So you need to understand how you can evolve that. So AI has a significant part. And if you look about what we are doing, we are targeting large companies, like companies with more than 5K employees, 10K employees, and we are building a marketplace that only built with AI that help both sides of the employees and hiring managers find each other within the company. So the only way we were able to do that is using AI. But on the other hand, we should still work to make sure we are eliminating bias. We still have human interaction in that process that help us to actually eliminate that and making sure we are doing that on the right way. Because if you are not building AI, I think on the right way, and that's a key thing to understand, it could lead to bad results. So that's something we are really focusing on, because it's really important for us as a philosophy for the company.
Yeah, no, we see a lot of interest in level 1 AI ethics. That's something that keeps popping up. I mean, it's important for organizations, to think about how they can, get this in place. Having transparency, making sure it's explainable, making sure you can reverse it, making sure you can train it, making sure there's human led, right? If you start a process with a human, end with a human, at least you catch something we might normally not have seen. You guys are doing a lot around training against bias. Like, what are some of those things that are important that people should be thinking about, especially internal marketplaces? Right? Internal marketplaces, the good news is the data is at least closed. You know what it is, right? And you can see you can actually hopefully see some kind of level of inherent bias and understand what that bias is before it gets there. So
and it actually goes to the fundamentals of the reason I started the company. And actually connected to the new world that we are currently at. If you think about post-COVID, the hybrid approach, people are working from home. And I'm looking on my experience at the company in IBM. And I remember myself, after 4 or 5 years, I wanted to see what will be next in my career. And looking back then, I had only 2 options: to explore outside the company or to explore internally. And what is interesting that exploring outside of the company was much more easier for me than exploring internally. And why it's so interesting, because even when I wanted to see what would be next in my career within the company, I was able to do that because I'm such of a people person. So I knew some people and they helped me, and I met people at the elevator and I spoke to them. And if I'm looking on the fundamentals and the philosophy of what we are trying to do with the talent marketplace, we are trying to democratize that process. Not only the 5% of the organization who knows the right
Yep.
people, who not now able to go to the next career step. Now it's democratized to the entire organization, so everyone can play in that part, especially when now people are working from home. Even the human interaction is not as it used to be. So now you need even to help more on bridging that gap, helping people to meet within the organization. So if you think about that, that's what we are trying to do. So that's the first reason why we are seeing such a diversity, and such a diversity in DNI, and how our product is actually supporting that, because it lets the entire organization play in that part.
I'm impressed, Ben, because at the beginning of the conversation, you re-emphasized the word skill or skills. And I find that many organizations haven't taken advantage of the power of skills mapping to open roles. The transferability or mobility of a skill, to me, is more impactful than job titles. When you're looking for a job title or a potential career based on a role inside of a line of business, like an IBM with hundreds of thousands of employees, very mature business, it's very difficult to know, like, I'm a great writer. Guess what? Writing skill is good in marketing, in engineering, in commerce, in sales. I'm a good speaker. I'm great with math. So being able to map skills to open roles, and then creating perhaps a heat map that shows these are the 5 skills we're looking for, not experience, not title, not line of business jargon. These are the skills we're looking for. So I'm interested in your algorithm. How does Gloat look at mapping a group of skills that an individual has to open and create that connection in a way that's smart, and not only career pathing individuals, but making sure that the individual is going to be successful in his or her new role?
Yeah, we want the NDA version.
That's tough.
We're just kidding. Okay, give us the broad version. Give us the broad version.
It's really in the core of what we are doing. But that's actually really a really smart question, because I think in the past, when people are looking for someone, they thought they are looking for a title, and they thought that's the way they look on someone.
Yeah, product manager, product marketing. And I'm a person who is not ever in product marketing, but I'm a great writer. I'm a critical thinker. I'm creative. I can build consensus, but I'm in sales. So a salesperson would never think product marketing, and yet he or she could be amazing given the skills that are required.
Yeah. And actually, we turn this into that philosophy. When we come to organization, we are actually helping them using our job architecture. When we are actually show them how we are building that skills map, and we are telling them, forget about the titles, forget about that. And I can even tell you how we are actually introduced that to companies. We told them, use our product, use our talent marketplace in the beginning only for part-time projects. And I want to tell you what happened. Organization, think about large organization like Unilever, Schneider Electric, Seagate, like really large organization. We told them, now everyone within the company can open any part-time project they want, and they can find talent within the organization that can actually help them to complete that part-time project. The results were amazing. Awesome. Unilever did more than 500,000 of unlocking hours using our product. Seagate gave us a number after 4 months, $1.4 million using only projects. How they utilize their employees. And if I will take that topic and connect it to what you ask, so we told them, forget about titles. you look for skills, you look for experiences, and you let people within the company to actually do projects with you. And what happened? We saw so many cross-functional assignments. We saw more than 40% people from marketing helping product, people from development helping marketing. We saw so many cross-functional assignments because people were not looking only for the titles. They're looking for the set of skills, the experiences that are relevant for someone. And it's I'm shocked from that every time. But we use Gloat. We use internal talent marketplace within our company. We are around 200 employees, not the type of companies that we are working with. And if you think about that, now I have the visibility on our entire organization. I know what exactly skills and experiences my employees within the company have. And every time there is a part-time project, I'll give you an example. We wanted to record a marketing video, and we wanted someone to give us a voiceover. And we found that one of the employees, as a hobby, he's doing voiceovers on other freelancer products that you have outside, and it was crazy. We found that using our product. So that's something when you think about that, but think about in scale. Think about a company like Unilever, few 100,000 size of employees. They probably have every skill and every experiences in the world within the workforce. So now they just need a way for them to utilize that. They need to wait for them to unlock the potential that their employees have within the organization. And if you look on the other side, how it puts the employees on the driver's seat. Now the employees is in own control of their career. They can develop themselves. They can do projects. They can get new skills, new experiences. So it's very important for them for their career development. So suddenly they don't really, it's not really important for them to look outside of the company because they see the company see them, because they see the company is important for them to progress their career within the company. So that's some of the things that we are doing on that specific topic. Yes,
I have a quick follow-up question. Last week we had a general manager of the Linux Foundation on our show, and he talked about the importance of universal credentials. Do you envision at some point I have my Gloat mobile app and all of my skills are perhaps on a ledger where it's a trusted, verified that I do voiceovers, I'm a journalist, I'm a marketeer, and so you have mobility of your skills and credentials in a trusted framework where other employers can potentially see and quickly vet that this candidate has the right skills I need. So mobility of credentials, is that something Gloat helps employees do so that they can be marketable broadly?
Yeah, and I'll answer this question from two sides. First of all, skills assessment and verification and certification is something which is probably it's very important thing, but currently it's not really solved. Why is that? Because there are products that saying, let's test the employees, let's do tests for them and see if they can certificate the skill. What we see, it's very easy to overcome these tests. It's not really accurate. What we believe is the future of assessment and certification is to be able to get people around you that actually can tell a bit about that skill that you done together with them on a specific project, or you work together with them. So you have many people together with you are helping you to certificate and to give you some assessment on one specific skill. So that's on the first topic. Second, I really agree that the future says that we let people actually to take this assessment and credentials and to let them actually to mobilize between companies. And I can give you even tell you a sneak peek that I can share.
Breaking news from Gloat. Breaking news.
Yeah, we already have companies, non-competent companies, that are actually thinking of and using our and going to use our product to actually help them to take employees from two companies and actually switch them for part-time
Nice.
projects
Nice.
and then get
That's
them back.
amazing.
And
That's
if you
amazing.
think what will happen to an employee that will go to the same department but different company, it will learn more things. There will it will be more creative. It will get more experience. Then it will go to his own company. So it's a win-win for both companies as you think about that process. So that's the first step, and the second step could be like helping people actually moving between
You hear it
companies.
here
Yeah,
first on
sorry, Ray.
Disrupt TV. Breaking news. I'm
I
doing my
like
voice.
it. Talent marketplace ecosystems.
Talent
You know,
marketplace
Exactly.
ecosystems across non-competitors, creating the new type of workforce. We always wonder why LinkedIn would never just go out and certify. I mean, if they just the API for, did you work here? Did you have this school? Like, did you go to this school? Did you have this skill, right? Between employers, they could create this massive API marketplace, but they don't. But real quick, hey, how did you meet Amichai and Danny? Let's get to the origin story, and congratulations on the 57 million in Series C funding in June. Tell us real quick. You got about 30 seconds. So
How did I meet? Okay, so Amichai was a colleague of mine in IBM. He was responsible for the architecture. I fell in love. He's one of the smartest people that I ever know, and he's the CTO in the company. And Danny, actually, it's a funny story. He was my boss in the army, and we switched roles. He said it's better that way. So now it's I think that he's the CMO in the companies, and obviously a very talented
that's
person.
awesome. That's
So,
awesome.
but thanks.
that is
Thanks for having me.
amazing. Congratulations. You got a great team there. We're looking forward to seeing you succeed. So we are here
Thank
with
you.
Ben Reuveni, co-founder and CEO of Gloat. And we're using the radio voice, Twitter at Reuveni Ben. So follow him in there at Twitter. If you need a voiceover artist, sign me up too. All right. Talk to you later. Thanks a lot for being
Will
here.
do.
Of course.
Ben, great
Thank
work.
you.
Congratulations.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Bye.
Dialing in all the way from Tel Aviv. I love that. That military discipline obviously will help him be a successful CEO. And speaking of successful CEOs, our final guest today is Mimi Brooks, CEO of Logical Design Solutions, LDS, a consulting firm that envisions and designs enterprise digital solutions. Since founding the company in 1990, Mimi has led LDS to become a recognized brand among technology-focused management consultancies and trusted partners to Fortune 500 business clients. Mimi's a former AT&T executive with a career focusing on organizational design, technology-driven business transformation, and research on changing behaviors of business users. All of these have never been more important than right now. Mimi's recognized as an industry thought leader, author on topics such as future of work, organizational transformation, digital business strategy, and frequently presents to Fortune 500 leadership teams and industry conference events. You can follow Mimi on Twitter at BrooksLDS, BrooksLDS. Welcome, Mimi, to DisrupTV.
Vala, thank you so much. And I just want to say before we get started, Ray, this is the first time I've been here. I love this format. In my next job, I want to come back as Vala.
Yeah, listen, I am riding Ray Wong's coattail for years. There's no better job than being Robin to Batman, Ray.
I am not kidding you. You're just having too much fun, Vala. Do you see him? He's just like totally into it. It's
Absolutely.
great. And I want to do one other plug. My own personal copy. I'm not kidding. I brought them. Give me a minute. I do.
Oh,
I have
doubles.
Got them both.
Oh
And
my
let me
God.
say, I'm not kidding you, Vala. When you said every executive should have this book, I'm going to tell you, I sent it. You can see I've got it all marked up, dog-eared. I sent it to 6 of
Ken
my...
is still watching. He is like smiling, like
I'm telling you, I
grin to
love
Ken
grin.
is a super brain. Like there are people
I
that are
love it.
like
Look at
Ray's
that.
a
He's all
big brain.
excited.
Ken is a super
Ken will
brain.
give me credit. I'm not kidding you. Ken knows. And you know what? I just have to tell you, you'll just crack up with this story. So when my marketing group asked me if I wanted to do the show, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty busy in August. Let's like put it off. And they said, that's fine. But, if you come in August, you get to speak with Ken. I go, okay, I'll move my calendar for that. That I will do. I'll be there.
That
So
is
much fun.
awesome.
So
Awesome.
I sent, Val, I just have to tell you, so I sent his book to 6 of my CEO clients. And Ray, I marked up different passages of the book for each person because their situations are different, you know, and wrote little notes like, this one you got to read, this one you got to read. And I love it. So
what Ken doesn't know is I'm one of the small group of people at Salesforce that decides or provides input who we want to bring as speakers for future events.
Yeah.
He's on my A list.
I'm telling you.
So, yeah, he's going to be getting contacted by my company. Yeah, yeah.
I love it. Love it. One of the best business book, one of my top 10 favorite business books, sincerely. So nevertheless, thank you so much for having me. But I just have to tell you, it's too funny. And then my last coincidence is just yesterday, I'm with a client and they asked me to come in and take a look at it and do an evaluation of Ben's product.
Ben, we are super connectors.
This is like
Ben, if you're still watching, turn on your video. This is awesome. We'll pop you in here. Like, how could we possibly tie an episode better than this? I mean, great production work by our producer, Elle there. I mean,
so when he came on, when Ben came on, I didn't know his name. I didn't know the CEO. And so, Vala, when you introduce him, you know, CEO of Gloat, I go, oh my God, Gloat? He's the CEO of Gloat. Just did that evaluation yesterday.
Well, here's the final cap. Mimi, congratulations for being on the BT 150, the 2022 list. We'll see you at Constellation Connected Enterprise. And so we really appreciate this. You've been talking a lot about the organization, the future. You caught the eyes of our BT 150 selection committee for that, and really trying to understand how the organizations of the future are built. We're definitely going to have to talk in the green room with Ken and Ben later. But, you know, let's start here. What's happening? What is this org of the future? I mean, this is the perfect starting point for, you know, what's going on. So give us an insight as to where you see this happening and, of course, what your clients are doing.
You know, there's no more exciting time, like you said, you know, than now to be doing this, Ray. But the thing that's interesting to me is that, not surprisingly, that, you know, as goes the business, eventually goes the organization, even if there are stubborn behaviors and structures that ultimately need to change. And so what I'm seeing, Ray, is as our companies are becoming open constellation marketplaces and ecosystems, right? So are organizations starting to adopt some of these languages and ideas. Now, it's still a bit immature. You know, I'm not saying that there isn't a long way to go, but the things that are resonating, Ray, are things like purpose, leading with purpose, culture as the glue, you know, ideas like recognizing that we need to value all of our constituents, stakeholder capitalism, all constituents matter. And, you know, Ray, as Vala said, I've been doing this for a while, and workers who have always been our focus have been second-class citizens to customers and others for a long time. And so for them to finally kind of take their seat at the table, the center table where they belong, where, you know, customers are customer-centric in the marketplace and we're worker-centric, you know, in the workplace, it's about time. So I think that as corporations are recognizing the changing value creation in the marketplace, you know, we're recognizing that organizations need to adopt some of these same concepts and bring them into the organization ecosystem itself. I would say, Ray, that one of the most stubborn things that we still haven't quite cracked is the old systems and structures of organizations. So, you know, we're going to have to do something about those hierarchies that are getting to be, you know, kind of anti-patterns, if you will, to the workplace of the future. So those are some of the things I'm seeing. What do you think?
No, it's very consistent in what I'm seeing. I have the good fortune of engaging with executives on a daily basis, senior executives that are leading army of men and women across multiple sectors. A common theme for all of them is how much concerned they are with onboarding. Some of them said we've hired tens, hundreds of folks we've never met, and their direct reports haven't met the single contributors, and it's cascading effect. So this employee experience in this decentralized, for much of the time, digital-only construct is creating perhaps a trust deficit, a sense of belonging deficit. Yeah. So cracks in the culture are more revealed. So can you talk about how do you guide your clients in this digital only or digital first world that we've been in since February of last year, and the impact it has on the employee experience?
So it's a great question, Vala. So, you know, most of our clients are not digital first organizations. You know, most of our clients are large legacy global businesses, you know, who have found themselves in many cases being a little late to the party. late to the party from a marketplace perspective, and certainly late in, creating some of the ideas for the workforce of the future. And I think that's driving some of the things that you're seeing, Val. For example, I think that even though we've seen this train coming and it was accelerated, with COVID, no doubt, we've done not a great job in many businesses of planning for and really envisioning the workforce of the future. Who are they? What's the work of tomorrow? What's human work in that future state? How do we develop, human-centric work really? And someone's got to do all that work design, right? Someone's got to redesign all of that work. And so I think in the first phase, you saw a lot of automation, kind of skim off the top of it. If it could be humanless, it became humanless, or it's becoming humanless. But I think that what we're left with is the tougher nut to crack, which is the commingling of people and machines, and this idea of, people having digital counterparts. And my understanding as a worker of what was done before I came here, what happened once I put my hands on the wheel, what happened when I took my hands off the wheel, and then where am I when I put them back on the wheel again? Like this commingling idea and the redesign of that type of human machine work is the tough work that I think is still ahead of us. So to bring it all the way back, Val, I would say, I've been talking about the employee experience for 10 years or more. I think our first white paper could have been, 15 years ago. It's not like a new idea, but I think that what is a new idea on employee experiences is that we're really talking about experiences that need to accelerate transformation. They need to accelerate new ways of working for people, and we need to get to new work design that's automated work with people in the middle. So a lot of it's still ahead of us.
I can see why you love this book, because it feels to me you're in the process, personally of reframing the narrative around employee experience with counterfactuals, with constraints that are new, like the pandemic. So it feels like this resonated with you because you're actually going through the process of reframing this whole 10-year-old topic that we've been talking about.
The other, absolutely, it's a bit of a playbook. Like what I would do with a book like this is try to operationalize it, Ray. How can I take those ideas, and really turn them into work practices? And here's a good example of that, Vala. So the position in the book, around diversity as a necessary idea of innovation and business decisioning, in our future. Not that it's just diversity and equity, a human right. And of course it is, and it's important in its own right. But, when we can monetize that as well and say, we need those types of diverse teams in order for us to be competitive tomorrow, and we really see the actionable idea of that relative to our value proposition, that's a hand in glove idea. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, we're definitely seeing this shift that's going on, really, and it's really about these people-centric business models. And if you think about this, right, you've been talking about flatter models. You talk the need for that, right? As we get to that people centricity, I mean, that's a different framing, right?
Totally different,
right? And the need to work with man and machine; those things are going to be coming up. As like, it's like, how do you train your dragon? Well, how do you train your AI bot? That's going to be the question that people are going to be asking, right? Like, how do I train this AI bot? And, how do I figure out false positives, false negatives? How do I figure out the exceptions? Why do you break a rule? How come someone doesn't follow a process?
That's
where
right.
do these things come into place? That's a very different framing than, hey, I've got 10 directs. Plus there's one AI bot.
So totally different. And, Ray, I wonder if you see this too, that, one of the most surprising, stubborn ideas here in terms of organizations is what I was mentioning before, and that's silos. The silo busting, that needs to happen in order to create a connected workplace. It's just key, because when you think about it in the future, the ecosystem of business, they're all horizontal concepts, right? They're horizontals, ways of working, horizontal, cross-functional, horizontal, et cetera, but in order to get there, we've got to let go of the silos that create, obviously leadership clarity, but they really don't do anything for us in terms of, creating ways of working that we're going to need to get to going forward.
And a framing point here is the fact that these are horizontal silos. I mean, think about that. You're crossing horizontal silos.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the visualization of that's kind of hilarious.
It is.
Like how
it
you
is.
get at it. So,
and to tie to the conversation, Val, that you were having before, with Ben, which I thought was fascinating. I really did have a good time today. This is the most fun thing I did all day, Ben, listening to you guys.
That's what I've been doing. That's why we love this day.
But this idea of like skills of the future, Vala, like we don't tend to get too much into skills of the future, but we do a lot of work in organizational capabilities of the future. So we tend to kind of come down to this needed capabilities level, that become either new work design and the capabilities needed, from people in order to carry on that new work, or some of these ideas of, new ways of working that become organizational capabilities, differentiating organizational capabilities. Yeah, you get it.
It's what's the challenge for me is when I read the World Economic Forum report that says if you have a child in middle school, 7 out of 10 are going to have jobs and titles that don't exist yet.
Yeah.
So in terms of readiness, I mean, I didn't think chief digital evangelist 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And
you didn't study to be a chief digital evangelist?
Right. I wish I'd go back in time and learn the art of narratives and storytelling and speaking and writing. But when I think about the pace of innovation, the velocity, speed, and direction, and how that's going to impact the future of work in new functions, new titles, you look back 15 years ago, mobile app developers, none. Uber drivers, social media managers, cloud architects, like these us three could probably riff on 100 titles that didn't exist 15 years ago. And the pace of innovation now is breakneck compared to 15 years ago. And I have a child in middle school. So how do schools, high school, college, internships, businesses ready themselves for this algorithmic economy that Ken talked about, and this incredible AI that's built into the human capital management software that Ben talked about, and the fact that you CEOs are counting on Mimi to guide and shape their innovation roadmap. It's just you have to have a beginner's mindset. You have to have resiliency. You have to be able to unlearn and relearn and change yourself. Like it's. What got you here is not going to get you where you want to be. And that's why I think the work that you're doing is so admirable, because you're, removing blind spots that business leaders have in terms of readying themselves for this future that we're a part of. I want to ask you a question, because the pandemic, I believe, has had even a massive impact, negative impact in terms of women leadership in business. Reports from UN show that because of schools closings, large portion of women leaders have decided to be at home and taking care of the family. Only 10% of CXOs are women. Can you talk about the importance of sponsorship, putting your political and social capital on the line to help career path, high potential individuals, specifically focusing on diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, I think that I think it's a great point. So here's how we come at it. Val, let me tell you, where it comes into our work. And where it comes in is this anticipation of, what is the workforce of tomorrow? Where is that talent going to come from? And how do we need to get all people possible with their toes on the front line to become, the talent that we need for tomorrow? There's no doubt about it. I think that Ken might have even said this. I'm not sure, touched on this idea of there isn't a client that we're working with today, Vala, that isn't in an active hunt for talent right now. Yeah. I mean, one of the most difficult times. So to your point, Ray, it took women out of the workforce. It took a lot of people out of their native industries as they decided that, we can move across industries into organizations and places that we haven't been before, which is a good thing, especially as we start thinking about, the employability of people with good, broad, horizontal skills that can be applied in multiple contexts. But it's left corporations with huge holes from a talent perspective, So now more than ever, we should be the most motivated to bring the best talent, no matter where they come from, to the table, to engage them, to make sure they feel that they belong here, that they can make a contribution here, because nobody wants to work any place anymore, Ray, where they don't feel like, their human contribution matters, or that the business doesn't have some common set of interests that I have as a worker, whether it's environmental or planet or prosperity, it doesn't matter. I want to work for a place that, feels like, what I care about and what I believe. And so we can't be any more motivated than now, to engage people and get them to work and to flatten our structures so that we create opportunity across the board. I just don't know how we could be more motivated than we are today.
Very well said. Very well said.
Yeah. And geography is no longer a factor. I mean, that's the most important thing. I mean, the global talent pool is finally enabled, which wasn't possible before. So very, very good stuff. Wow. We are flying on time.
I know.
That felt like 2 minutes with me. I feel so bad.
I have to tell you. So, Ray, I want you to promise me when Vala goes on vacation, you tap me in. I will sit in for him.
He's already talking with Tesla with their humanoid as a replacement for me. So.
No, it's a human position. It
is. I think so.
Look, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it, Ray and Val. It was a lot of fun.
We're here with Mimi Brooks, CEO of Logical Design Solutions. You can follow her on Twitter at BrooksLDS. Thank you so much for being on the show. We'll see you next time. See you in the green room. We'll have a bunch of folks back there, I think. We'll see who's left. So I think Ken will at least be in the green room. So thank you, Mimi.
Thank you.
All right. Wow, Vala. Another hour has gone by so quickly. It's been crazy. What are your thoughts? What's going on?
I am still processing Ken and Ben and Mimi's contribution to the show. I find myself often weekends watching the show again and realizing, oh my God, I missed this salient point. I missed this amazing thing that was said. And we should have doubled down on that conversation. The problem is the 20 minutes for me feels like 1 minute. It is the fastest hour of my day, but it also is a reminder I could be doing this for many, many hours a day. It's just amazing to learn and connect. And it's extraordinary when the guests actually have connections already. The fact that Mimi is sharing Ken's book with her organization, I thought was pretty awesome. Anyway.
Well, if you're at iHeartRadio or Viacom, please pay attention. We're happy to do this on a full-time basis. Just give us a call.
But I love what I do at Salesforce, but this is pretty cool. Okay, next week is episode 248. We have Suki Fuller, analytics storyteller, advisor,
awesome.
VC. Yeah, she's extraordinary. And talking about a great natural storyteller. And it was Brené Brown who said good stories are data with a soul. That's what Suki's all about. All her stories are full of data with a soul. Amazing. So you're going to enjoy Suki. Dr. Janice Presser, relationship expert, PhD system scientist. Yeah, Dr. Janice is always, you never know where the conversation is going to go with the good doctor, but it's always super insightful and relevant. And Mark Golston, medical doctor, MG100 coach, founding member of Newsweek Expert Forum. So again, 3 extraordinary people next week, much like Ken, Ben, and Mimi this week.
Mark is one of the closing remarks. Mark is one of the top-ranked business coaches, strategists out there. I had the pleasure of being on his podcast a few weeks back and returning the favor there. So quick thoughts. I'm super excited. There's still a lot going on, a lot of interesting projects, a lot of folks with some wonderful positions.
How's it going?
This is fun. We're seeing a lot of traction. It's awesome. A lot of conversations. Had a chance to speak at keynotes inside organizations of some of the digital giants. Hopefully blew their mind. But there's some fun stuff. If you're reading the book, $3 trillion market cap opportunities you can build in this thing and $100 billion unicorns. I'm more than happy to show you how to do it, but it's all in here. A lot of learnings from some great clients of ours over the last 10, 11 years. And of course, thanks to everybody who helped out with the book and the book launch. One last launch, September 9th. We think it is in the Bay Area, maybe September 8th. We're toying between the Hotel Nia and the Rosewood. We'll see what happens. But if you're out,
you're gonna give some of these away at Constellation Research. I suspect most of the folks attending have already read it twice.
I think they mostly haven't, so I'm not sure. We'll see what we do. I'll leave a pile for folks who are going to be there. Our event's still going on, but our big event is the pitch. We're bringing enterprise tech startups together. Today's the last day to apply. 7-minute video. If you're Series A or below, 3 million ARR, make sure you apply. We're pairing you up with 50 to 70 of the top people in terms of technology decision makers in the world. They are the Constellation Academy of Judges. And of course, the event September 13th through 14th, it'll be streamed out virtually. So that's it. If it's Friday, What is it? It's DisrupTV. So check it out every Friday, 11 a.m., 2 p.m. Eastern. And we're happy to see you here. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Stick around if you're in the